cutting the funding. President Donald Trump says the United States will no longer send hundreds of millions of dollars to the World Health Organization. How lawmakers and global leaders are responding. 1 year later, an update on the restoration efforts at Notre Dame Cathedral on the anniversary of a devastating fire that nearly destroyed it. Spotting scams. The Internal Revenue Service offers advice on the schemes targeting Americans and their coronavirus economic impact payments. And peace be with you. The Holy Father says there are two definitions for serenity, one from the world and one from God. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Donald Trump says he is cutting off payments to the World Health Organization for not sounding the alarm over the coronavirus sooner. New numbers show more than 2 million people worldwide have been infected by the disease. And Johns Hopkins University says more than 132,000 have died. Correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, the White House today released a statement saying President Donald Trump is demanding accountability from the World Health Organization and that he will always put the well-being of America first.
The WHO failed in this basic duty and must be held accountable. It's time after all of these decades.
President Donald Trump slamming the World Health Organization.
One of the most dangerous and costly decisions from the WHO was its disastrous decision to oppose travel restrictions from China and other nations.
The White House says the organization's response to the coronavirus outbreak has been filled with one misstep after another.
Many countries said, we're going to listen to the WHO, and they have problems the likes of which they cannot believe.
The U.S. is the UN Health Agency's biggest funder, contributing between $400 and $500 million annually to the Geneva-based agency in recent years. The head of the World Health Organization says it regrets the U.S. decision to stop the funding. Reporting for EWTN News Nightly, I'm Owen Jensen.
U.S. lawmakers are reacting to President Trump's withdrawal of funds from the UN agency. Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called the move senseless, but some Republicans are applauding the president's decision, saying it's necessary. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Tracy, the House Speaker calls the president's decision dangerous and says, quote, it will be swiftly challenged. This morning, I spoke with two Republican senators who are supporting the president, even as more Democrats pile on the criticism. This afternoon, the Senate Minority Leader accused President Trump of making a bad call.
It's just utterly mind-boggling that at this critical time that the president is choosing to focus his time and energy on a vendetta against the WHO.
Republican Senator James Langford tells me this step is not permanent.
It's not about withholding funds forever from them, but we've got to be able to get their attention and say, how do we get real reforms here?
And the president is within his rights.
We saw the World Health Organization leadership standing in China in January saying everything's fine, everything's contained. They were literally giving the Chinese Communist Party line. We just needed basic data. We're not blaming China for the coronavirus, but we just need data and they can't hide it. So that's what the World Health Organization is supposed to do. When they fail to do it, it's entirely reasonable to hold them to account.
A Chinese government spokesman today criticized President Trump's move, saying, quote, this U.S. decision will weaken the World Health Organization's capabilities and undermine international cooperation in fighting the epidemic. But Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler tells me,
when you think about the investment that the United States makes in this agency, because we rely on them for moments like this, I mean, this is the moment for which they're accountable for addressing. And we have to really just look to them and to China and say, what went wrong here?
7 Republican senators joined together to write a letter to the World Health Organization's Director General. They say, quote, American taxpayers deserve answers about how their taxpayer money is spent. They're asking for documents as far back as October 1st. It's in preparation for a future congressional hearing. Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
There's global reaction to the president's decision. The European Union says the White House has no reason to cut the funding, and it calls for unity rather than divisiveness. Germany's foreign minister adds this is not the time to try and assign blame for the pandemic. More Democrats are rallying behind Joe Biden's campaign for president, including Barack Obama and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
And we can't afford to let Donald Trump continue to endanger the lives and livelihoods of every American. And that's why I'm proud to endorse Joe Biden as President of the United States.
Senator Warren is the last major Democratic contender to endorse the former vice president. Joe Biden also got an endorsement yesterday from his former boss.
And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made, and he became a close friend. And I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now.
The former president urged unity across the Democratic Party, adding that Joe Biden's platform is the most progressive of any nominee in history. A report from Iran's parliament says the death toll from the coronavirus pandemic is probably double the official figures. Iran's official death toll is almost 5,000. That is the worst in the Middle East. Meanwhile, a factory that was built in just over 3 weeks is producing face masks. It makes 3 different kinds of masks and is operating around the clock in order to meet demand. The governor of Tokyo is announcing a $7.5 billion emergency package to fund measures against the coronavirus pandemic as infections surge in the Japanese capital. And Japan's finance minister says the G7 agreed to take measures to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on the largest 7 economies in the world. The finance minister says the G7 will support developing nations that have weak healthcare systems. France marks the 1-year anniversary of the Notre Dame Cathedral fire.
The worst part was really when one had the impression that the fire was coming down and suddenly it resumed in one of the towers. So that was really the worst moment.
The fire broke out shortly before 7 p.m. Paris time 1 year ago today. The roof and the spire, which date back to the 19th century, were both destroyed. But the cathedral's main structure was saved from collapse. Joining us now is Solène Tadié, European correspondent for the National Catholic Register. She is also a native of Paris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Tracy.
So, Solène, give us an update on the rebuilding of the cathedral.
Well, the restoration process has been halted because of France's coronavirus lockdown that began March 17. But officials still hope that scaffolding can be removed by the fall so that the reconstruction work can start eventually. 1 year after the blaze, we still don't know what caused this tragedy, and investigations are ongoing. But the investigators are still working on the theory that the fire was started by accident. At this time, we still don't know if the wooden spire will be rebuilt as it was. But there is a good chance that wood will be chosen over other materials like steel or concrete, as it would be the fastest, the less expensive, and above all, most ecological solution in the rebuilding process. On Good Friday, a special celebration with the relic of the Crown of Thorns was held inside the cathedral. The Archbishop of Paris, Monsignor Petit, held a meditation on the Passion of Christ, which was live broadcast. And tonight at 8 p.m. Paris time, the cathedral's great bell will ring out as a mark of the first anniversary of the blaze and in tribute to health workers risking their lives to treat COVID patients.
Solène, during this past year of mourning, how has the French community and Catholics and non-Catholics, that is, changed from this tragic event?
Well, we can say that it has had an impact on the collective sensitivity with regard to the Christian heritage of France, as churches and other Christian historic sites are still being vandalized or abandoned. Countless initiatives are flourishing in the whole territory to raise awareness on the importance of the Christian presence in the country. For instance, I would mention the various local initiatives led by young people in order to protect churches from being vandalized at night, especially. And it is a sign of a growing concern among the population, and the huge amounts of donations for Notre Dame coming from people with very different social backgrounds are another proof of that.
Do you know when we can expect the cathedral to be reopened?
Well, the Army General in charge of rebuilding Notre Dame, Jean-Louis Georgelin, has said that, according to him, it is still possible for the cathedral to reopen in 2024, as pledged by French President Emmanuel Macron. Georgelin said that unexpected delays in work to restore the cathedral, including the coronavirus lockdown, of course, need not derail the 5-year deadline. So we'll see in the future.
Well, Solène, quickly before we go, I want to ask you, how is France dealing with the coronavirus pandemic?
Unfortunately, France has been one of the hardest hit countries during the pandemic so far. The outbreak has killed close to 16,000 people in the country to this day. But the lockdown period started March 17 is expected to end on May 11, as announced by the French president during his April 13 address to the nation. Until now, people cannot go outside and they are just allowed to visit the grocery store or a doctor's office, and that's all.
Well, Solène, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight. We really appreciate it. Stay safe. Solène Tadié, European correspondent for the National Catholic Register. Coming up, the Holy Father reminds us why it is so important to remain faithful to God. And analysis on the Supreme Court's consideration of a case involving the Little Sisters of the Poor. Pope Francis reminds us to be faithful to God because he is always true to us.
La fedeltà di Dio è festa, è gioia.
At his daily Mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father says God never tires of looking for the sheep that are lost, and he never charges us money to do so. Instead, all he asks in return is that we remain faithful to him and to remember he is close to us at all times. The law firm representing the Little Sisters of the Poor commends Monday's Supreme Court announcement that it will hear oral arguments by teleconference in the case. On Twitter, Beckett President Mark Rienzi writes in part, "This outcome will keep everyone safe while ensuring that the wheels of justice continue to turn." Joining me now with her analysis is Andrea Paciotti-Bear. She is legal advisor for the Catholic Association. Andrea, welcome back to the show. So great to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Tracy, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, the Little Sisters of the Poor have spent many years in litigation related to the so-called contraception mandate. Andrea, what's the most recent case about?
Well, this case, it's interesting. It's been going on for a decade, and it seems like hopefully we're at the end of the long process that these beautiful religious sisters have gone through. It's the Trump administration actually came up with a great accommodation so that the Little Sisters wouldn't have to provide contraceptions and abortifacients and sterilizations in their employee insurance programs. And curiously, 2 state attorneys general fought this and have filed suit against the administration. And the Little Sisters are joining them to fight and say, no, these kind of accommodations for religious freedom are part of our system of law and consistent with both the Constitution and federal law.
What's the importance, Andrea, of this case when it comes to religious liberty, and what's at stake here?
Well, I think it's incredibly important. This is about who gets to be part of contributing in the public square and who is going to be punished if they don't kind of agree with the majority. In this case, these sisters provide incredible service to elderly poor, just like many other Catholic-run organizations, and they want to do so consistent with Catholic teaching on human sexuality and respect for life. Hopefully, the Supreme Court will allow this wonderful accommodation so that they can continue to contribute and that religious freedom continues to be held in high esteem.
Well, the justices are going to hear this case by teleconference with the justices and the legal counsel for both sides all participating remotely. Can we talk about the significance of that change for the court?
Well, you're right. This is historic, but it's also a prudent action on behalf of the court, on behalf of Chief Justice Roberts. I'm sure he really was concerned about his brethren. As we know, 4 of the justices are 70 years and 2 of those 4 are 80 years old. And so we really need to be concerned for their well-being. As for the advocates and the people who want to participate and observe, I think what's very unique and interesting is that the public as a whole will be able to listen to this audio conference on C-SPAN audio. So this is a really great opportunity for the system of justice to keep moving, for the rule of law to be upheld, and these important cases to be decided by the court.
Andrea, I know it's really hard to predict, but do you think this could begin a new transparency for the court?
You know, it is absolutely hard to predict. I'm betting that when we can return to the normal process, the tradition of the court is to have things not videotaped, not live audio, and they'll return to that. But who knows? Who knows how long this difficult time is going to last for us? And I think at least this most important step has been taken, that these cases can be heard and justice hopefully will be the result.
Andrea, quickly, anything else about this case do you think it's really important for our viewers to know?
You know, my organization, the Catholic Association Foundation, along with EWTN and the Religious Sisters of Mercy of Alma, Michigan, we filed a friend of the court brief. This isn't just the Little Sisters of the Poor. This is all Catholic-run organizations not currently covered by an exemption, and to be able to take the benefits so that we can continue to live out our faith in service to our neighbors.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for your insight. We always appreciate it. God bless you. Stay safe. Andrea Picciotti-Baird, legal advisor for the Catholic Association.
Thank you, Tracy.
Pope Francis has named a new leader for the Diocese of Paterson, New Jersey. Father Kevin Sweeney is the pastor of St. Michael's Church in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. The 50-year-old was ordained in 1997 and has worked in several parishes in New York City. He replaces Bishop Arthur Serratelli, whose resignation was accepted days before he turned 76 years old. Pope Francis says that he is praying for the people of New York City during the city's fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Cardinal Timothy Dolan says the Holy Father called him yesterday to express his concern for the situation in the Big Apple. Thousands of people have died from the coronavirus. For more on this story, including more on the Holy Father's message for New Yorkers, you can visit our partners at CatholicNewsAgency.com. And a reminder, EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day. Mass airs at 8 a.m., noon, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we are also showing the Pope's daily Mass and other special programming throughout the day. We also have Eucharistic adoration from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on our website, EWTN.com. Up next, tips from an IRS agent on keeping the coronavirus economic impact payments safe from scams. And Pope Francis says interior serenity is an incomplete version of peace. We'll explain. The Internal Revenue Service has an important message for Americans who are waiting on their COVID-19 economic impact payments. Beware of scams aimed at taking your money. Joining me now on Skype is Special Agent in Charge Kelly Jackson. She is with the IRS Criminal Investigation Field Office in Washington, D.C. Kelly, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So what kind of scams, Kelly, are we talking about? Are they phone scams, phishing scams, maybe scams of fake government documents that come in the mail?
Yes, actually, all of the above. There are phone scams right now. There are phishing or email scams. Some of the scammers are also using text messaging and also trying to reach out to taxpayers using social media.
So what should people be on the lookout for? You know, that telltale sign that something may be a scam.
Well, first of all, let me just say the IRS, in regards to these economic impact payments, the IRS is not going to call you. The IRS is not going to send you an email. The IRS is not going to send you a text or try to reach out to you via social media. So if you get contacted in regard to the economic impact payment in any of those manners, it is a scam.
Kelly, what kind of information are these criminals looking to get from people, and what's the best way to protect yourself from it?
Well, if everybody remembers, not too long ago, we had the identity theft, I'll say crisis for lack of better words. They are looking to get your personal identifying information. They're also trying to get your bank account information. They can use that information to do a number of nefarious things. File tax returns is one of them. Try to get credit, try to open up a credit card in your name. The skies are endless as to what they can do with your information once they get hold of it.
How about these scammers? Are they trying to maybe reach out to a particular segment of the population?
I would say anybody right now that's entitled to an economic impact payment is at risk. I think most people are at risk because they don't understand how they're going to get their payment. I think a lot of people are in very great need to receive the payment, so they think that these emails or texts or whatever that they're getting under the guise that it can help them get their payment faster. A lot of people, unfortunately, are succumbing to that fraud. So it's not necessarily any particular segment, but anybody who's entitled to the economic impact payment is going to be at risk.
If someone thinks they've become a victim of one of these scams, what should they do?
Okay, great question. The first place to go would be irs.gov to report. There's actually a portal that the IRS has set up. And also, what I wanted to make sure everybody knew, once you get your payment, the IRS is going to send you a letter in the mail approximately 15 days after the payment would have hit your bank account, just to confirm that you received that payment. And if you didn't receive that payment, there's going to be instructions in that letter of how to let us know that you didn't receive the payment, and then we can take it from there. The other thing that I would suggest besides irs.gov is there's every single field office has a way to get in touch with us, i.e. IRS criminal investigation. So you can reach out to an individual field office via their outward-facing email address to report fraud or suspected fraud to the IRS.
Great. Kelly, thank you so much for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it. Special Agent in Charge, Kelly Jackson. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you.
And finally tonight, Pope Francis says God's definition of peace is different from the world's.
E che la pace va cercata sempre e comunque.
At his weekly talk to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father says interior serenity is good, but incomplete. Instead, true peace comes from knowing God loves us and is walking with us, even in our troubles. And the peace of Christ is found when we embrace the crosses we have to bear, just as our Lord did. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.